Hello and welcome, Albion community, to another Albion Online Development Recap. My name is Robin Henkys, Game Director, and today things are really heating up in the office, where everyone's very busy working on the next release, the Galahad update. And I thought we'd take the opportunity to talk about something that was actually key to making the decision to produce this update, which is the rework of the Outlands. It's something we mentioned a couple of months ago and that we have been quite quiet about recently, but it's actually the centerpiece of why we are reworking the world of Albion as we are right now. So the Outlands is the place where guilds settle, where guilds have their massive fights, where the wars happen, where actually a lot of what makes Albion special happens. And this is why it's been, a centerpiece of our attention. And of your attention as well. We've been getting a lot of feedback. We got a lot of feedback after Beta 1, and we got a lot of feedback after the launch of Final Beta in August. And the key feedback there was, in Beta 1, the Outlands were really a centerpiece of attention. They were a hectic fighting zone. We had a lot of intense guild battles. They were very small and very compact, and this forced these fights. The downside of that was that these areas were dominated by extremely strong guilds that basically were able to control the entire area and pretty much left no room for anyone who wasn't, quite at the top level. So from these experiences, we reworked the high-end zones, the Outlands, in the next phase of beta, and the result was what you're playing right now: a very large area for the guilds with lots of room, separated by time zones in a circle, and our idea was this would be a place where the less strong guilds would also find a location to settle, and where the individual players of the guilds would also occasionally find a place that wasn't that competitive, where they wouldn't immediately get killed by large groups of people roaming the map. And this turned out to be true. However, we also saw a decline in massive guild action. We saw basically that some weak guilds were forced to settle next to strong guilds because of the time zones. We saw that those guilds were quickly getting eliminated, and then the strong guilds had very little competition, and there was in general a lack of hotspots of places to fight over. So when we had to make the decision whether we would launch Albion or not, we had to make this call. Were we happy with the layout of the world? Was it doing what we hoped it would do? And our answer was no. We wanted to basically take the best things from Beta 1 and the best things from the final beta to really deliver the launch version. And that's what we're building right now. That's the new design of the Outlands. So how does that work? Well, we wanted to create dedicated hotspots, places where there would always be a competition, and you could basically always pick a fight because there was always a reason to be there. And at the same time, we wanted to create places where individual players could go together without always fearing competition, and places where you could somewhat safely travel. And the result is that the new Outland design. If we take a look at the map, the Outlands are separated into 3 different areas. We have the high Outlands. This is the place with the highest value resources. Then we have the medium section and the low section. And the medium and low section are separated by, again, having different values of resources. So by values, I generally mean density. You will still find high-end resources in the lower Outlands, but their density is much lower than in the higher Outlands. So with this design, what we want to achieve is that the the strong players, the really strong guilds, the large alliances, they settle in the high Outlands because this is where they can, you know, compete with the highest end gear. This is where they have access to the highest end resources. And at the same time, at the lower end Outlands, we have room for, you know, beginning guilds to settle, to get to know the world of GVG and the world of territory building. And they hopefully do not face such strong competition because the lands around them are not extremely valuable. There's still valuable resources to be found, but it is harder to equip a team in you know, strong gear sets in these areas simply because there's fewer resources of high tiers available. The Outlands themselves are connected to the Royal Continent in different locations, and every section of the Outlands is connected from a different place in the Royal Continent. This guarantees that that you can't use the Royal Continent to shortcut to get to a different section, so the people settling in the higher section can't really terrorize the people in the lower section. And at the same time, the people from the lower section cannot easily move into the higher section to take its resources and then safely retreat back to their bases. So there's a certain degree of separation, but all of them have pretty easy access to Royal Continent, which allows them to import resources from there, low-end resources. It also allows them to export their high-end resources, and it allows the recruitment of new players into your guilds. One of our big hopes of this new high-level Outland design is that it allows us to better deal with different player numbers. Let's presume that we've misjudged how many players are coming, and there's a high demand for more room in the Outlands. Well, then we can just continue this pattern. We can basically, you know, add a new area that we consider high next to the high area, and we can consider a new area medium next to the medium area, and so on. But if we've misjudged how many players are coming and we're on a generous side, there's too much land, then this design should force a certain level of competition, because people will, you know, if there is no one settling in high, obviously people will move to high, because this is the place where you have the easiest access to resources. And then if you're, you know, if medium is not quite full, then people will settle there. And eventually low will be pretty much empty. Obviously this is not what we expect. We've made some, based on previous tests, we've made some assumptions about how many players are coming, but we really think this this design helps us to deal flexibly with the various, with differences in player numbers. One last thing to say about the high-level design is that we've generally reduced the number of cities in the Outlands. The Outlands are mostly about territorial warfare, but the fact that there is now fewer cities, but there are in key strategic locations in between different zones of the Outlands, means that these cities should be much more lively. You should not have you know, the feeling of empty towns. These should actually be thriving trade locations in the Outlands, and they're key to providing food to the guilds in the Outlands. They're key to providing market and all sorts of forms of trades and exchanges. So maybe let's look at one of these sections of the Outlands in detail. Let's zoom in on the high end Outland Arena. What you can see is at the outer ring of such an area are the home territories of the guilds. This is where, you know, we still have one territory per region. So if you are controlling this, you should be, you know, you should have a pretty comfortable way of defending your home. You still have access to a farm territory pretty much immediately, and you actually only have one main route into this region. There is a secondary one, but it's through a passage. That's a system or a pattern we've been experimenting with. It's basically an underground path into the neighboring region, which is a bit more interesting in terms of PvE because in terms of PvP, because it has a bunch of choke points, it has a couple of resources. So it's quite an interesting feature for guilds to deal with, to plan with, that there's basically two main ways out of a cluster. If we look at the rest, at the arena as a whole, we see that all biomes are present, and we see that the time zones go all the way around the clock. So you have basically you have an incentive for people from all different time zones to settle in this region. That is something that was very important to us, because this allows competitors from all over the globe to meet in the same highest end arena in the Outlands. Just to avoid confusion, when we're talking about Outland arenas, what I mean is that each section of the Outlands is designed with sort of a feeling of a designed battleground in mind. It's a group of regions that is designed to fulfill a certain purpose. So an Outland arena is the whole set of regions with the high value ones in the center and the guild territories to the outside. You can also see how we've tried to create this constant action hotspot. The center area of the highest end part of the Outland is really full of strong incentives to go there. First off, we have what we call a home base. So right at the center, we have a location where you will find the raid level PvE, where you'll find regularly spawning world bosses that have really strong loot. And you'll find really strong resource harvesting opportunities right at the center. Not only do you have the highest value resources there, so your T8 and your T7 there, but you also have really high quantities of T6. So any gatherer who really wants to have an easy time of gathering these resources will go there. Then you have the castles in the center, so they will still be on a weekly timer, and them being right in the center of the arena also forces the fight, and it makes it interesting because the castles are not actually that far from each other. So at the time where the fights are happening, you're going to have to make a decision how to split your forces if you want to try to control both castles, for example. We've also spread things like chests in a way in the arena that allows for different levels of competition. So the more frequent chests are towards the center of the arena, whereas the more rare chests, the daily chests, are a bit more to the outside. This is to guarantee or to ensure that there's some action that is restricted to your time zone, that not all the action in the arena is always for everyone, at full force, but so that you have an opportunity for a little bit of smaller scale PvP at the outside. And finally, we have some clusters that don't really offer a lot of special features right next to the guild's home territories. This is a space where typically you wouldn't encounter that much competition. There are not that many fights. There's just some basic mob camps here. The bigger dungeons are further to the inside, and the more valuable dungeons again are more further to the inside. But if you're just looking for some solo or small scale PvE, you should be looking right next to your guild's home territory. There's a lot more features we could be talking about. There's strategic resource locations that are also placed towards the center of these arenas. Again, another feature that reinforces the notion that these places are where the action will be at, where your guild really needs to ensure that it takes control of these regions while you're want to take advantage of these special places. So I hope we've given you an idea of how the new Outland design works, and I hope you're as excited about finding out how it works as we are. We're not too far from the next update now. We'll have an announcement on that pretty soon. So I hope to see you online, and until next time.